What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Hang 10, another episode here hanging out in the Wavy Plus studio. I'm your host, meteorologist Brian Michigan, and we've got another fun one for you guys today. Unfortunately, the waves have still not really been cooperating across really the entire East Coast as we've gone through so far, almost the middle of the month of July. Looks like it'll probably stay, pretty quiet for the next several weeks here, but, peak of hurricane season's right around the corner. We've got to be super patient. This is a time of year anyway where for the beginner surfers out there, which we've kind of been talking about, certain topics over the past few weeks that are really important for beginners to know, like knowing the difference between a point break and a beach break, knowing kind of the rules to the lineup is really important for beginner surfers. But to kind of go one step further and to kind of continue on with this kind of theme here that we've been going on for the past couple weeks of kind of talking about things for beginners, we're going to be talking about the benefits of surfing and then also going into some more details on kind of how to properly check the surf and how to, spot where you want to surf for that next session, because it's a whole lot more than just kind of driving to the beach, parking your car and going right out. There's a lot of checking that goes into it, especially, once you start kind of progressing in surfing and you learn more about the ocean, you kind of learn the sand, especially on the East Coast, it shifts all the time. So you're not always just going to roll up on the first spot that you see and go out for a surf session. A lot of times you're going to, you're going to roll up to a spot. Maybe it's not quite doing it and you'll go to a different spot, and you have to understand kind of what to be looking at. What exactly are you looking for? Areas where you should paddle out, where you shouldn't paddle out. Areas where maybe if this one lineup is too crowded, maybe let's go to a different one. If there's not enough waves for me, why would I waste my time? You want to maximize the potential out of your surf session. So we're going to be talking about all that today in this episode of Hang 10. Also going to talk about a little bit about what kind of surf breaks are good for beginners, because believe it or not, there is, it's not stated in surfing. There's no signs on the beach that tell you this, but it really can be broken down to beginner, intermediate, and expert when it comes to certain surf spots across the world. We just happen to live in an area where it's kind of a mixed bag of everything, with our breaks being beach breaks, but that's not the case for everywhere. So if you go on a surf trip, there are some breaks where if you're not an expert level surfer, you're probably going to struggle. So we're going to kick this off, continuing with the theme of trying to help beginners, get into surfing and do it properly. We're going to talk about some of the benefits. So maybe if you're kind of on the fence about surfing, if you're kind of looking for another exercise to maybe get yourself into, surfing is a great one. Obviously, I'm a little bit biased. I've been doing it my whole life, but it really is one of the best things for you in terms of your health, flexibility, just all of that stuff, stress relief. We'll talk about all of that. So we've got a couple graphics here that we'll kind of cruise through. The number one thing I think most people, when they're trying to do an exercise, a lot of cardio can, be a little boring. Not everybody's into running. Not everybody's into, you name it, other forms of cardio. You're running on a treadmill. It's a good workout, but you're not going anywhere. You're just kind of on the treadmill. If you're going for a run out, outside, that could be fun. Not for everybody though. Surfing and swimming, two of the really best exercises, sources of exercise you can really go for. And it's fun too. Surfing, bodyboarding, boogie boarding, doesn't even have to be surfing. Getting in the water and riding waves is a really fun cardio experience, especially when it comes to two things, paddling and maneuvering. More so the paddling though, because with the paddling, you keep your heart rate elevated. It improves your endurance over time. We're not talking an instant improvement in your cardio. That you have to be doing it for a while, like any other exercise, to improve the cardio. It could also lead to improved heart functions and even increased blood flow as well. All things that are essential for the human body. Not only that, but it's a good source of strength training, specifically for your arms and your shoulders, obviously kind of with the paddling. But it's also good once you're up and riding over time. Your back, your core, legs strength really improves from surfing. But again, it's mainly with the paddling. So really surfing or any form of swimming, really, really good for your cardio, endurance and your strength. You spend over 60% of the time, and sometimes even more. There could be surf sessions where you spend 80% to 90% of your time, depending on the conditions, just paddling around. So it's really, really important to make sure that you have that endurance and you have that strength to be paddling. And overall, in other aspects of your life, being a good swimmer, being good with endurance in the water, it's going to be great for your overall health. So that's another big thing. Those are probably the two biggest things: the strength and the cardio exercise, getting that in, and then also the strength training. Also, flexibility. Not a lot of people think about this when it comes to surfing, because people think, oh, it's just, you just stand up and you just go right, you ride down the line. But there's a lot more to it, especially once you start getting into the whole, maneuvers, and you start learning how you have to adjust your body in order to do certain maneuvers, certain turns. If you're bottom turning, or if you're trying to get in the barrel and you have to, compress your body, it's all about flexibility, especially in your back, your knees, even your hips, especially with turning, and even your ankles, especially when it comes to barrel riding. You're putting your lower body into a really kind of contorted position. So you want to make sure you have the flexibility for that. Things like yoga or constant stretching. I have a stretching routine every single day. That way I'm not getting too tight when I'm going out for a surf session. Things like that can help you not just be better for your next surf session or feel looser, but it also, once you start surfing and you decide that this is something you want to do for a long time, it can really, really help to kind of extend your surfing career. Once you start getting older, a lot of big time surfers out there, like Kelly Slater, for instance, he's still doing it on the competitive world tour here and there as a wild card, but he's the GOAT for a reason, and he's been in the sport for so many years because he's such a flexible guy. He has the strength, he has the flexibility, and his body, over the years has been able to stay at that peak level because of consistency. So, surfing improves the flexibility, but also doing things outside the water, like yoga or stretching consistently, will really help you in the long run. Now, this next portion, the stress relief, you can it's not so much the physical aspect of surfing, but it's the mental. The ocean can really be calming for a lot of people. I know it works for me. Long day of work, long day of severe weather coverage. Nothing really helps me more personally than going out for a surf session, whether the waves are really small and I'm taking out a foam board, or the waves are really big and a little gnarly, maybe a little bit scary. There's still a little bit of a stress relief factor. You kind of can just let go out in the water. It's very strange. It's almost like the ocean kind of has like this healing power, because everything kind of washes away when you get in the water. So that's another big one. That's probably the biggest one that can really help your mental, can reduce stress, reduce anxiety. Everybody, the everyday stresses of life, it can be really nice to get out into the ocean and catch a couple waves. It's also been linked to be a meditative experience, surfing and being in the ocean, being in the moving water, the waves, the energy flowing through the ocean. You can really connect kind of to that. Helps deal with depression and anxiety. And I could definitely speak truth to this. Going through, college, I went to Penn State, which absolutely loved my experience. Got to, partake in one of the best programs for meteorology in the country. But I was a Jersey guy, and I was a Jersey guy at heart. I grew up right on the beach surfing my entire life. So when I kind of moved to a new area, that being the middle of Pennsylvania at Penn State, I was a little bit homesick. I was very out of my element, and I realized, this disconnection from the ocean was kind of getting to me. But every single weekend here and there, when I would go back, maybe catch a couple waves if there was a swell in town for a weekend. It'd be a long drive, but I noticed getting into the water, disconnecting for a little bit from the stresses of classes back then, or when I eventually did get into my career. I started out in Savannah, Georgia, some small waves on Tybee Island. every single day. Severe weather coverage. We had a couple big storms down there, Hurricane Helene being one of them. That was some stressful times, but the days after the storm, getting out into the waves and catching a few really helped to kind of lower my anxiety, center myself, and kind of get back to my roots, and not think too hard about the stresses of life. Because I think that's something that we can all relate to. Life gets busy, and we all want some kind of outlet to really help us through those times. For me, that's surfing. And I think for people who are maybe on the fence about learning how to surf, I think that's one thing that you're really going to find with the sport, is that it can really, really help you, just as much physically as mentally as well. So can obviously have a very positive impact on mental health and bring you that clarity. A lot of times people nowadays scrolling through their phones, maybe spending too much time on their phone. I'm someone who at times can be included in that as well. But surfing, getting out into Mother Nature really helps, overall bring balance, I feel like, to your life, and, not be staring at a screen all day, because there's so much more to life than, staring at technology, which really has controlled the world, it seems like, over the past, many, many years. It also can help bring about, you in community, social interaction. It's a really cool dynamic with surfers. Everybody's kind of stoked on the same thing, and that's catching waves. It's being in the water, and that's, loving life and not taking things too seriously. I've learned that over the years, you find some, really cool people out there in the surfing world that are just have this love for life. And I think it's something that's, really a good thing to be a part of. So that really being, some of the biggest benefits that I've seen kind of when it comes to surfing. So those are some of the benefits. Coming up next after the break, this is where we kind of turn the gears here and give some more advice for beginner surfers, because as someone who's been surfing for a long time, this has become kind of second nature to me, kind of developing the skills into what you're looking for to check the waves. What are you actually looking for? Where are you paddling out? Where are you sitting? Where are the waves the most consistent at a surf spot? So we'll be talking about all of that and a little bit more coming up after the break. All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Hang 10. We're talking about some really cool things for beginners. This is something that, as a beginning, this is one of the things that you really only develop over time, but it's something to kind of keep in mind also when you're starting out surfing. We just went over the benefits of surfing, some of them being, the strength, the cardio training, flexibility, stress relief, and connecting with Mother Nature and, the surf community as a whole, and, can really introduce you to some really, really stoked people and people with a big love for life and love for the waves. So that's some of the benefits. We're going to get into I'm just going to call this part of the video, the podcast, checking it, because in surfing, we're always checking it. We are always looking for new places to surf. So we're going to kind of start out with number one, where to paddle out, and also just kind of realizing that the surf conditions, they change constantly, especially in our area, sometimes within a couple of hours, a couple of days, really with each tide cycle as well. Waves are always changing. Our breaks are around Virginia Beach, the Outer Banks, Eastern Shore. They're all sandbars, and sand has a tendency to shift with the currents and, different storms that come up the coast. It kind of gets all mixed around, unlike reef breaks, where reef break, it's just going to be, you have your bed of corals, waves are breaking over it, and it's really just, that's not going to move much over time. So that wave's going to stay the same over a long period of time as well. So kind of checking the surf conditions, we're checking for changes all the time. Not one day around here is going to be the same, regardless of the swell. Knowing the different types of surf breaks and kind of the risks that go along with it as well. is something that you really want to be looking out for, checking for the hazards. A lot of times, those hazards in surfing is what lies below the surface. It's things you can't see. Like in this instance, really cool shot, guy diving through some waves. You can kind of see the turbulence of the wave above, but the reef below, sharp reef too, coral reefs. You fall hard enough and you could really be getting cut up. So it's important to know before you head out for a surf session. You can do this by asking locals, but knowing what the bottom is like, kind of what the risks are, because a lot of times if you're surfing over breaks where there's a lot of rocks, there could be unevenness in the surface. So maybe under the water, there could be a rock that sticks up a little higher than the rest of the rock. So if you fall in that area, you may come into contact with a rock before you would expect it. So things like that, really important to kind of ask questions. And the more you ask questions, it can be maybe a little bit uncomfortable if you show up to a new surf spot. You're asking some locals, maybe they're giving you a funny look because you're not from there. Localism, big thing in surfing still to this day. But it's important because it can really mean the difference between a fun and low stress surf session or a high stress environment where you could potentially be putting yourself in danger by not being maybe ready for a certain type of wave. Now, doing this for 10 to 15 minutes, kind of looking on, you get to the beach, you kind of check it out from the beach. Don't even get in the water yet. Just checking it out for 10 to 15 minutes can mean really all the difference. It can lead to a better surf session down the line because you're able to kind of figure out things. Where are the waves breaking? More consistently, because that's where you obviously want to sit to maximize your time out in the water, catch the most waves. You want to see where the waves are breaking consistently. Usually that aligns with where the sandbars are, where the shallower parts of water are, and see where they're not breaking. You can use those deep water channels or those rip currents to kind of use that as a way to paddle out. I'll pull up this image here. Game planning, really, in surfing. You can kind of see that darker area of water kind of running right through the break there, kind of see where it splits to the two sandbars, the two areas of whitewater. That's a rip current. And obviously, if you're a beginner surfer, probably best to stay away, or maybe if you're not the best swimmer, probably best to stay away from those areas as well. However, for surfers, if you're a good swimmer, good paddler, and you kind of know what you're doing, you've gotten a feel for the ocean at this point, you've been doing it for a little bit, you can use these rip currents as kind of conveyor belts to get you out, save your energy, so you're not getting clobbered by waves kind of paddling out over the sandbars. You always want to avoid the sandbars when you're kind of paddling out. I'll pull this image back up. You can kind of see where the waves are breaking. You can see all those kind of surfers on the outside, and most of them, all those that are paddling are mainly off to the side. You can kind of see towards the left-hand side of that wave there that's breaking. A lot of those people paddling, they're staying out of harm's way. Anybody who's getting caught in the whitewater, it's going to be a little bit of a difficult time trying to get out there, fighting against the incoming waves, and again, just wearing out your energy. It's going to lead to a shorter surf session. So definitely going to want to find those deeper water channels where the waves cannot break, because waves need a shallow water sandbar, reef, rocks in order to break. In a later episode, we'll talk about the science and the physics behind waves, but you definitely want to be looking for those deeper water channels where the wave action is not as much in order to paddle out. So definitely one of the biggest things there. Also finding lulls in the sets, and what that means is, periods between each set of waves where it kind of goes calmer. This could especially be important in somewhere like New Jersey, for instance, where this picture is, where kind of sandbars, they shift all the time, and there's not a set location usually where the waves are breaking every single time. Sure, there's more consistent sandbars where the shape of the wave and the area of the break is going to be pretty similar, but you can get waves that break outside of those sandbars sometimes on beach breaks because things are so prone to change throughout the day with the rising and the falling of the tides. Also with beach breaks, much safer as well. Usually you have those sandy bottoms. You have your much more kind of mushy waves. It's great for beginners, great for learning how to just kind of get your bearings and just kind of stand up on the waves as a whole. Things like reef breaks or point breaks, for instance, probably not going to be the best place to learn because number one, they're usually a little bit faster waves. They can usually be more critical. A lot of times they break out from the headland. We talked about that in a previous episode as well, kind of the difference between point breaks and beach breaks. Point breaks, a lot of times there's some structures underneath, rocks, reef, whatever the case may be. Even if it is sand, usually those point breaks set up near cliffs or near rocky areas that could be hazardous for people who are starting out surfing and kind of just going straight. You don't really want to do that on a point break. You want to go down the line and follow the wave. So I would say definitely in our area, we'll have no problem for beginners kind of knowing where to go. If you go to Virginia Beach Oceanfront, if you go to Sandbridge, Outer Banks, the Outer Banks when it is small, because it can get really big on the Outer Banks, especially during hurricane season. But, those kind of breaks, those sandy bottom, sandbar waves that are, on the mushy days, great times to learn. They're really forgiving waves that aren't too steep either, because definitely don't want that when you're kind of getting your balance on a surfboard, because it could be really kind of unnatural when you're starting. Another thing is ask yourself a lot of questions when you're taking that 10 to 15 minute time span. Assess the crowd. Ask yourself if there's enough room for you out there. If you kind of see waves go unridden, like for instance in this wave, you can kind of see the right on that wave is there's a guy, it looks like going left, but there's the right looks to be up, it's unridden. There's no one on it. So that can be an indication that, yeah, there's enough waves out there for you. This lineup doesn't look too crowded, but if we switch over to this image, you see there's two people paddling for one wave, and then the third guy down on the shoulder of the wave who's kind of looking to see what these other guys are doing. So that it looks like to this break, multiple guys going on one wave. In this case, probably not enough room to paddle out, and probably best to find a different surf spot, because if you're a beginner, the one thing you want to do is catch as many waves as you can each and every session. Really, you want to catch as many waves each session, and that really helps to, one, kind of get the skills to balance on the surfboard and progress the quickest. Everybody wants to progress as fast really as they can. Best way to do that is by catching waves, staying out of those really packed, crowded lineups. Even if that means going to an area where the waves might not be as good, all that matters is getting to your feet when you're kind of starting out. So those are kind of some of the best things to think about when it comes to checking the waves. Really just taking that, again, 10 to 15 minutes before you jump in the water to say, is there enough room for me out in the lineup? Is there enough waves going unridden that I could be on one of those waves that are unridden? Does this wave have consequences underneath the water? Is it a sandbar break? Is it a point break with a rock or reef underneath? How is the overall vibe of the session? Because sometimes you can go to certain areas of the world where really famous surf spots where there could be a pretty aggressive lineup there. Is that something you want to have to deal with? All of these things. Where are the rip currents? Like, where am I going to paddle out to, one, stay away from people riding waves so I don't cause a collision or wear out my energy getting pummeled by waves? Where are the rip currents to kind of take me out pretty easily without having to get, knocked around by waves, and so I can save my energy for a longer surf session? So for the beginners who are just learning, or maybe have been learning and are looking for more tips to kind of take that next step, those are some of the basic things that you should really be thinking about. When we come back, we're going to wrap this up with talking about what kind of waves and surf breaks are great for kind of beginner surfers, for expert surfers. Also go through a few clips to kind of show some of the difference. So when we come back, we'll show all that. Thank you for tuning in to Hang 10. Stand by. All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Hang 10. We're going to wrap this up with talking about kind of the different kinds of surf breaks that are great for beginners specifically. I've done a previous podcast recently on the difference between point breaks and beach breaks. Watch that one if you haven't already, because that really dives into the specifics of each break, why some are, what's the difference between the two, number one, but also the different kinds of waves that go along with it and how they form. So that's kind of the basic understanding for it. So we'll get into, kind of the certain breaks for beginners. Obviously, I said it before, you're looking for kind of those mushy sort of beach breaks. You want to know your limits in this case. If you're, just starting out surfing, you know that, maybe those big reef breaks, those big barreling waves maybe aren't quite to your level yet. seeing waves where the lip is kind of crumbling down. It's a smooth break from the whitewater. Really slow, easygoing waves. That's what you kind of want to look for, especially when a lot of times, if you're a beginner, you're riding some really soft top surfboards, which aren't really great for riding really big, steep, critical waves because of the outline of the board. It's a really long, flat outline, so it doesn't fit into the curl of the wave as easily. So knowing your limits and knowing the kind of waves you want. For beginners, that would be that mushy kind of surf. May seem lame, but it would definitely help you, kind of gain the skills down the road for catching waves. Avoid shore break. Look for those sandbars. Shore break is a really common place people can get injured out in the water. Shore break meaning waves coming out of deep water right up against the shore, and all that energy is crashing right directly on the beach. It's not breaking out into the ocean on those sandbars. So something to definitely look out for. If your only option is to surf a rocky or kind of a reef type of surf break, maybe you don't live in an area where there is sandbars, definitely practice if you are falling, because you're going to fall a lot when you're beginning to surf. Learn to protect your head because a lot of times on these reef breaks, you fall, you wipe out, and you fall into the water a certain way. You can go far down enough where you can potentially hit the reef, and you definitely don't want to hit your head out in the water. You want to protect yourself at all costs. Now I'm going to switch over to some clips here. This is from Georgia, actually. So this was a great wave for beginner surfers and expert surfers alike. I've been surfing for many years, but this is a great wave. You can kind of see the lip really crumbling along there. Great for learning how to surf. Really low consequence waves as well. This one's from Jacksonville, Florida. A little bit of a bigger day. Also a little bit more of a crowded day. So it's important on these days where you can kind of see them kind of in and out of other surfers. If you're someone just going straight and just learning, probably going to be best to avoid these surf areas. But Jacksonville Beach, another instance where it's a sandbar. This video is in El Salvador. You can kind of see to the left side, rocky. Underneath, there's a fair amount of rocks as well. So if you're a beginner surfer, this break here, this is Las Flores in El Salvador, probably a good spot to avoid. Really fun looking waves for sure. This is a point break, so they go on for really, really long. But again, you can't see it because it's under the water, but you have plenty of rocks mixed in with some sand here at this location too, but especially near the cliff. If you wipe out off the takeoff, you could be potentially putting yourself right near that cliff, right near those rocks. So again, here's another video from Tybee Island. This is that same wave from earlier. These are the waves that you're looking for beginners. Really crumbly, low risk type of waves. Goes right onto the beach, easy peasy, on and off without as much of a risk for injury. So that's kind of what you're looking for when it comes to learning how to surf. For the next really couple weeks until we start to get waves here in Virginia Beach, we're going to be doing whole lot more talk about learning how to surf, the boards that are right for surfing, kind of the gear that you need for surfing as well. So stay tuned for that coming up in a future episode. We'll get everybody who isn't surfing or is really interested in surfing. We'll be getting you all out there in no time. So hopefully you all enjoyed this week's episode and learned something. Maybe learned the proper way to check the waves. Learn some of the benefits for surfing. And if you're kind of on the edge, should I learn how to surf? Should I buy that first surfboard? Do it. I don't think you will be disappointed in surfing. So thanks for tuning into this week's episode of Hang 10. We will be back next week on Monday.